Hey there, I'm Gabe Norris from the Connect Ministries team, and this is Connect Ministries podcast. If you're a church leader, a pastor, or anybody related to a church that's interested in helping your church meet new people, get better at assimilating those people into the life of your church, this is the podcast for you. Let's get started with today's conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, men and women, young and old, boys and girls of the world, I am so glad to introduce the Connect Ministries world to the great Danny Franks today. Summit Church, Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And the crowd goes wild, Danny Franks.
I'm listening for it.
All right, so Danny, who in the world are you? What do you do? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, Gabe, thanks so much for the invitation to be on here and to be with the Connect Ministries family. My name is Danny. I've been on staff at the Summit Church in North Carolina for the last 22 years. Most of that time, I've had one common thread that's been running through the roles that I've held here, and that is all about creating great experiences for our guests who are showing up, providing a pathway that helps them to take steps towards a relationship with Jesus and to live that out after they become a follower of Jesus in serving and in small groups and in going on short-term trips, all of those things. But what we have discovered, both on the front side and the back side of that, is the importance of just building those healthy volunteer teams that are reaching guests and then having healthy volunteer teams for guests to join whenever they become a part of our church so that they can in turn reach new people.
Danny, I first met you coming to a one-day seminar workshop type setting at your church. And for our listening audience out there, if you've never listened to Danny's teaching or been in person where he was teaching, I can tell you as somebody who has been in attendance and has greatly benefited, you got to get around wherever Danny Franks is. You got to let him have a chance to teach you what he's learned over all these years. And so we're excited to have you at the Connect conference, and we're excited about learning even more from you during this conversation, Danny.
Well, thank you. I
Danny,
appreciate that.
I love listening to success stories. I love it when I can learn from somebody that seems like they just got it all right. But what I love even more is when those same leaders take us back to an era when they sort of felt like they were getting it all wrong. And I'm just wondering if you had one of those moments where you're like, Norris, whatever we do now, I just got to tell you, it's because we skinned our knees and we bruised our elbows. And I finally just said, this is not the way to do it. Can you remember a time when you realized the things you're passionate about now were sort of born out of, this has got to stop, and we're not going to keep doing it like this anymore?
Yeah. Can I remember a time? What time is it now? Exactly 20 minutes ago. I think I've been in ministry, vocational ministry, for 32 years now. And I think about those times early on when I knew everything. Nobody could do it as well as I can. All of those things that we know are not true, but as a young buck, I thought were pretty true. And I came to a realization, and I would say it wasn't a one-time realization, right? It is a series of realizations over the years where you never get perfect. You just get better in recognizing the fact that you can't do it all. You're not the smartest person in the room. You're not the smartest person on your volunteer team. You should probably be the biggest champion and cheerleader for whatever ministry that you lead, but you're not necessarily the one who does it the best. Um, and I remember that first big realization came shortly before coming on staff here 22 years ago, and in another role at another church, and just recognizing that I was the bottleneck to the ministry that I was leading, because everything needed to go through me. Everything had to begin and end with the guy with the business card, right? Those back in the days of business cards. And now, I've again, a series of revelations. And for me now, those happen at least weekly of I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room anymore. I'm never going to be the one who is able to outwork and outdo anybody else around me. I now lead a team of people on our staff who are most of them the ages of my children. So they've got far more energy than I do, far better ideas than I do, are going to be here long after I'm gone. And so I think if there is a realization that comes along with that, micromanaging, bottlenecking, it is making sure that we're investing in others who are going to make the ministry better than we could ever think about making it.
Well, I know that you spend a lot of your time thinking about volunteers. You spend a lot of your time equipping, training, empowering, developing volunteers. Uh, but as I look at churches across the country, and maybe you do too, I see volunteers as not a place of success amongst churches. It's a place of a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Volunteers is something that seems like a lot of churches just can't quite figure out. And I wonder, as you've hung out with so many churches over the years, what are some common mistakes that you see churches making with volunteers that's actually preventing them from growth, slowing them down, it's killing momentum?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times there's not a clear ask that we have. We don't, as leaders, we don't always know what we're asking them to do. We sometimes, even in the way that we ask them to step up to serve, it's almost that we're apologetic for asking them to do something, or we're over asking. We've got somebody who's given us 16 yeses over the years, and we're like, they're slow and weak, and they'll give us a 17th yes. They can't outrun us. So there's that. There's the way that we invite volunteers to serve, but there's also the things that we're inviting them to serve to. I think so many times we're guilty of not giving them a strong vision, not helping them understand not just what they do, but why they do it. And that's crucial for any volunteer to understand the why more than they understand the what. Because if they know the why, if the why is clear in their soul, they're going to get that what right most of the time, with or without our help. And I think a lot of times we just leave volunteers to kind of fend for themselves and to sometimes fill in the blanks that are not theirs to fill in. And that's not discounting volunteer creativity. It's not discounting volunteer feedback. It's not discounting any of those things. It's just recognizing that we're asking them to come into a system that hopefully we've got kind of clear in our minds as the leader of that system, but we're not onboarding them appropriately to help them understand the vision behind it, the wins that are involved in it, and to give them a clear path forward. And I think a lot of times that's what leads to volunteers getting burned out. It's what leads to volunteers getting frustrated. It's what leads to schisms on your volunteer team when people get to fill in their own answers that again are not necessarily theirs to fill in. I think a lot of that begins and ends with our leadership as church staff members.
So this is such a difficult topic for so many churches, but in a lot of ways, Summit Church makes it look easy. And I know it, I know it's not always as it seems, but as just somebody looking in from the outside, you guys have really found some key ways to nourish the culture of your volunteer world there at Summit Church. What are some things you guys are practically doing that's creating a culture that works so well and is so sustainable for the future?
Yeah, well, to answer we make it look easy. We are nothing but ducks, smooth on top of the water and paddling like crazy underneath. Because I feel like, I mean, just yesterday I had a 2-hour meeting with some folks on our staff trying to figure out how do we raise the level of the way that we onboard and care for our volunteers and all of that. So we're always trying to figure that out. But I think some of the things that have been clear wins for us, at least when we're talking, if we're just narrowing down to our specific guest services volunteers here at our church, there's a few things that I think are important. One is that we want to have consistent and regular onboarding processes. We offer guest services training, onboarding training to potential new volunteers, 10 times a year. That's basically once every month, giving them a month off in the summer and a month off in December. But that always keeps something on the horizon for somebody who is interested in dipping a toe in the water, finding out a little bit more about the ministry. Um, we're making sure that two things don't happen. Number one, we don't want to say, yeah, we'd love for you to serve. Come to our next orientation that is going to happen 2 presidential administrations from now, whatever, whenever we get around to scheduling that thing. The second thing is we don't want to put somebody in a position of serving again before we've filled in all the blanks for them. And that roughly once a month orientation gives us the opportunity to train them before they begin to serve. So it gets everybody on the same page from the very beginning. So I would say those consistent onboarding processes are huge for us. Um, I think regular communication to our volunteers is important so that they know here's what's happening this weekend. These are the particulars of the weekend. This is the sermon, this is the passage, this is the speaker. These are the events that are going on campus. This is what's coming up in the next few months. We want you to know about it before the congregation knows about it, so that our volunteers feel like they have buy-in. So that when a guest comes and asks them a question, they don't feel like that they're lost in the weeds. They understand all the nuances of their role, and they're able to be very informative in the way that they speak to our guests and our other congregation members as they're showing up. And then, as we all know, and we know, but we don't always do, appreciation is crucial. I don't necessarily think we have to have, the annual go all out volunteer appreciation bash. That's great. And we do that sometimes. But I think just being able to, as I think it was John Maxwell said, walk slowly through the crowd, being able to look your volunteers in the eye, thank them for serving, call out of them the things that you're seeing them do well, and making sure that you're just repeating that again and again and again every week, and not getting so caught up in the business of ministry that you forget the people of ministry. And in our world, a lot of times some of that first line of ministry is caring for our volunteers so that they can in turn care for a lot of our guests and a lot of our congregation.
I know that all that you're describing, when you add up the onboarding, when you add up the training, when you add up the caring, when you add and you stack all these things on top of each other, it creates raving fans. And I know that's what you're looking for. And raving fans, as we both know, they're going to show up more often. They're going to bring people with them. Uh, they're going to they're going to ask what else they can do to be a part of it, because that's what Raven fans do of any industry or any product. I wonder if there's one story in your experience at Summit Church where you were like, Norris, we did all these things and this raving fan emerged and it made a difference in our volunteer culture. And because of them, we now have access to a whole new tribe, or we've gained more volunteers, or we've had a chance to meet new people because this one person, I just remember when it clicked for them. Does a story come to mind when you think about
Yeah,
somebody that bought in?
yeah, one from actually just a couple of weeks ago. Immediately when you said that comes to mind. We have an older gentleman. We're a multi-site church, so this is a guy at a campus that I don't regularly attend. I know who he is, don't know him super well. But a member of our executive staff sent me a note a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, I want you to know, I was at this campus and I noticed this volunteer. This guy's a volunteer, a little bit on the older side, nearing retirement years." And he said he had been asked by his guest services director to help do some on the job training for some new volunteers to our guest services team. They had been through our orientation, but now it was time for, to learn on the job. And he said, I stood across the lobby and I just listened to the way that this guy spoke to those new volunteers as a volunteer himself. And he said, as I listened to him talk about the why behind what we do, he said, probably he didn't get every syllable right and nuance it exactly the way that you would want him to phrase it. But he said, man, he gets the spirit of what we're trying to do as good as anybody that I've ever seen. And the enthusiasm that he had, the passion that he had, he said, there is no way that that didn't spill over into those volunteers who realized that this guy's not paid to tell me any of these things. He's volunteering just like I am. And he said, this executive team member told me, he said, he had such an impact that he said, I think when it comes time for him to retire, we need to reach out to him and say, you want to be a campus director somewhere? Because he gets it that deep in his soul. And so I think that those are just the things, this guy that I'm referring to, others, volunteers just want something to buy into. They want something to be able to give their life to. It's not that they're looking for something to use their free time for, because they don't have free time. You don't have free time. I don't have free time. We don't have more time to give to things that don't matter. But when we can help them understand that these are the things that are going to last, you're having a role in changing somebody's story every single weekend. That's when you see volunteers that become lifers, and you will fight them to get them to give up their role because they are so invested in it.
Well, I love that you referred to them as lifers, and I know that so many churches that Connect serves, they wish they had bought in stories like that, and they know that if they could just get them to volunteer, if you just taste it once, love it for good. That's what S. Truett Cathy
Yeah.
used to say. If I could just get them in the ministry, if I could get them in this event, if I could get them in the stream, they would buy in. But we
Yeah.
just can't recruit them because, like what you said, they don't have time. And
Right.
I know you're talking a lot about the why, and a lot of churches are recruiting with the what.
Mhm.
But do you see any common mistakes that churches are making in recruiting that's preventing them from having more bought in stories like the one you just shared?
Yeah, I think number one, the way that we ask people is sometimes our fatal flaw before we even get started. I mentioned earlier, we try to downplay the importance of the role. We apologize for asking people. There's all kinds of things that we can do wrong. I am not a fan of using the word need from the stage, because there is always going to be somebody in the congregation who is going to respond to need. The problem is they've already responded to 8 needs. This is the
Right.
ninth, and you're going to burn them out. And so I love talking more in terms of opportunity. I love talking more, viewing a stage announcement as air war and recognizing that your uh, is it retention rate? I think that's the word I'm looking for. You are not going to get a return on that investment, um, in most situations, because everybody listening to that announcement thinks that is a great thing for that guy over there to do, because I haven't seen him do anything since he's been here, right? But I think using that as an air war, using those personal invitations, shoulder tapping opportunities, calling gifts out of people that you see in them, that's the ground war. And when you're able to look a friend or a congregation member that you've known for a long time in the eye and say, I see this in you, and this is where I think you'd be a good fit, that can make all the difference in the world for people. But it's all about, like, just getting in with people and being able to see things in them that they may not be able to see in themselves.
Have you been able to find at Summit Church ways that you can move a volunteer from, yeah, I'll fulfill that role for a minute. They sounds like they need it. And have you figured out practical ways that you take them from, I guess I'll do that, to I'm owning this. I mean, this
Mhm.
is I feel like I've embodied this role as a volunteer. Have there been one or two things that you guys have did that have done that flipped the switch?
Yeah, I think for that, the first thing that I think about, I mean, obviously, when we're talking about those onboarding orientation processes, there's a few people that we're naturally targeting for that. And then there are people that we just know is probably never going to be a candidate for that. The natural target's going to be folks who are new to the church anyway. So
Yep.
they've come through one of our newcomers classes, and we have specifically encouraged them to take a step, put their toe in the water of figuring out what one of these teams are that are out there, whether that's guest services or kids or students or whatever. A second group that we're going to target is people that we're targeting through those personal invitations that I talked about a moment ago. But the people that we're not necessarily targeting because we know that it's just not effective are going to be those people that have been pew dwellers for months or years, and they're just not going to respond to a, hey, come and check out this orientation opportunity to serve on a team. The reason that we know that they're not going to respond is because they haven't responded yet. And so why would we think that this month's announcement is going to be any different? So I think for those people, the opportunity there is to invite them to something that has a limited, very limited shelf life. And I'm talking like a special event, like a Good Friday service, or we're preparing for a large all church service that's going to take a ton of volunteers, much more than we normally have. And we're going to be inviting people. Hey, we're asking for 2 hours. This is 2 hours to make a massive difference. And so we're inviting people to something with a specific start and a
Yeah.
specific finish, and most of the time that's on the same day. But the key in that is afterwards we follow up with them with a sincere thank you, some stories from that event, stories that they helped initiate and make happen. But then a couple weeks later, we'll follow up with them again and say, hey, if that opportunity scratched an itch for you, we would love to invite you to come back and to check out the opportunities to serve on our team on a regular basis. And Gabe, every time we do that, every single time, we just find people coming out of the woodwork because they took a chance, they stepped into an opportunity, they enjoyed that opportunity, and now they want to do it on a regular basis.
Well, Danny, I know that you don't necessarily love the recognition and you're not seeking the limelight, but as an outsider looking in, I think that a lot of the success that you're describing and the health that you're describing rises and falls on leadership. And I think one of the reasons that you guys have such a healthy volunteer and guest services culture is because you have figured out how to be a healthy leader. When I'm around you, it's like being around a dadgum essential oil. I mean, you got joy, you carry peace with you. People want to be around a healthy leader, and you're one of those that I respect for that. And so I do have to ask, how have you figured out over these years to take care um, of your own spiritual health? How have you stayed in the game in an era where it feels like so many seasoned leaders are struggling to persevere and struggling to stay alive in their calling? How have you encouraged yourself, and how have you taken care of yourself over all these years?
Hmm. Well, Gabe, I appreciate that, and I will just say to counterbalance what you just said, I am surrounded by great leaders that we pay and great leaders who serve here for free, and those are the men and women who, if there is a human element that keeps you in the game, it's the fact that I get to serve around very, very good people. Some of my best friends I'm serving alongside. And so that is it's a joy to be able to have those kind of opportunities. But to specifically answer the question, we say one of our staff values on our staff is that we take the mission seriously, but not ourselves. We recognize that what we are doing now, let me nuance this. Our ultimate mission, we get it as life and death, like
Yeah.
true, true, all day long, twice on Sunday. Um, we are talking about people's eternities. We are talking about heaven and hell. That is our ultimate mission.
Yeah.
But a lot of the day-to-day things that we do, it's just not life and death. Yeah, a lot of times it leads to those opportunities to have those evangelistic conversations. But, if I have a team member who's panicking, or if I'm panicking over something, and whatever, all of the prepackaged communion is not going to come in on time, and we've got to, because we forgot to put the order in, and now we got to overnight rush something or whatever. It's not life or death. It's not, nobody's going to die because we didn't get all of the communion in, and they might have to drink a
Okay.
cup that's a month over. It's okay. So we want to take the mission seriously. We want to do our jobs well, but we also understand that it does not rise and fall on us. If we're never going to be the smartest person in the room, if we're never going to be the most talented person in the organization, because usually there can only be one of those people, and I'm looking around me and I know I'm not him. most people I know, that's probably not them because I don't hang around with super smart people. Then we have to understand that it is the Lord who builds his church. We read that, we can believe that, but I don't think we often live that. We have to recognize that God doesn't need us in any of these things. He just graciously chooses to use us. And so, if he's going to graciously choose to use us, then why wouldn't we want to abide in him, tether our lives to him? You know, the days that I feel most anxious and most overwhelmed with the role of my job is usually the day that I just need to kind of go back to the vine
Yeah.
and recognize that I tried to charge out in that day in my own strength and
Yeah.
my own experience, my own know-how, my own wisdom, and I just don't have any of those things in nearly enough quantities to be able to get through the average day in our office or in my life.
Well, as we wrap up here, Danny Franks, I'm thinking about the church leader that's listening right now, and they're not trying to be like Summit Church. That is not their goal. They're trying to be the best version of the church that God's called their church to be. And would they know that part of that is to have a healthy volunteer culture? For that church leader that's just trying to get one piece of last advice from you, if you had one piece of advice for the church leader that wants to lead a healthy and thriving volunteer culture, what would your one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I would say the very first thing that comes to mind is find your common stakeholders. Find those. I recognize that leading volunteers can be frustrating because we're leading people and we're people leading people. But if you can find that very small, I'm talking two or three people, that is your common band of brothers or sisters that love the things that you love, believe in the things that you believe in, fighting for the things that you're fighting for, and there's somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, venture frustrations to, workshop new ideas with, those people will, I mean, again, we're talking human element versus spirit elements, but if we're talking human elements, those people can keep you in the game for a lot longer than you can go by yourself. And so I would just say if you're really thriving in leading volunteers or you're really struggling in leading volunteers, find some of those volunteers who you kind of get excited to hang around them because they tend to love the same kind of things that you love when it comes to church ministry. And then just begin to experiment like crazy and lead alongside them as they're influencing people in their circles that you're not necessarily going to be able to influence.
All right. Well, if you're listening today to this conversation and you want to be the type of church that's more effective at meeting new people, one of the ways that Connect wants to help you do that is by inviting you to our Connect conference in January of 2026, Nashville, Tennessee. We believe that there are four key ingredients that every church can use as a mindset to help their church meet new people. And one of those mindsets, one of those key ingredients is to build life giving relationships, to create a culture of life giving relationships. And we believe that one of those key relationships is with volunteers. And that's why Danny has been a big part of today's conversation. Danny, for the church leader that's going to think about coming to the Connect conference, could you share just a smidge about what you're going to be talking about? What will your role be at the Connect conference, and why should their team consider registering for this January's Connect conference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of two parts to the role. Both of those are going to be different sides of the same coin of building life-giving relationships with volunteers. There will be that keynote, which will be the, rah rah air war or whatever. But then, again, to use that analogy, the ground war is going to be more of a breakout workshop style format, which will give us as leaders time just to get in a smaller group in a room and just talk about what actually works, some very, very practical tips to help pour life into your volunteers, build that life-giving team that we all want to have, and therefore just feel like we've got some longevity as leaders.
Hey, if you're a church leader or a pastor, Danny is not going to train us on how to do it like Summit Church does it, but instead, he wants to inform our minds and hearts on who is a volunteer. How do you speak their language? And even more specifically than that, how can you build a personalized game plan that's catered to your church and your context and your community. You're going to be able to leave Danny's teaching with a plan that's ready for your town and your church and your people. And we're looking forward to inviting you to be a part of that. Danny, if you had one thing to say about this book right here, I know they don't have to wait till January to get a little bit more of Danny Franks. I know this is an awesome resource. Is there anything you'd like to share about this incredible book, People Are the Mission?
It makes a heck of a doorstop, and if you got a wobbly coffee table, it's fantastic. No, I think that is, that book is really in a lot of ways just the result of a lot of years of working with volunteers, specifically with those who are leading out in the areas of guest services and reaching those who are far from Jesus and bringing them into the church and helping them find their way forward. But it is something that was what are we supposed to say as authors, Gabe? A labor of love to bring that to press. I was just telling you before we went on air that I feel like I've written two books in my life. The first one and the last one, they're all in that one little volume. So get it while you can. And but yeah, it's something that I think will hopefully help and serve church leaders as they're just trying to figure out how to lead those that they are called to.
Danny, if our audience wants to find out more about Danny Franks and the resources you have available, where can they go to follow you more often?
Yeah, I've got a website that I maintain on a regular basis that covers all the ground from guest services to volunteer culture to leadership development, raising up those volunteers and making them into leaders. That is the letter D Franks.com, DFRANKS.com. Not to be confused with DannyFranks.com, who is a British DJ and the founder of Rump Shaken Records. That is not me, although some days I wish that it were true. But dfranks.com is where they can go.
Okay. Danny, thanks for your time today, and thank you for listening in. We look forward to continuing to help churches like you be more effective at meeting new people in the season to come. We'll see you
Thanks,
again
Gabe.
soon.
Yeah, I can't wait to be with you in Nashville. Thanks a lot.